lives. And the first key to trusting the process is this. If you want to be able to trust the process of God's work in your life, you've got to learn how to manage the monotony. Manage the monotony. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 33, Saul replied, David, you're not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You're nothing but a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it. I struck it and I rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it down and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be just like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. I love that. I mean, I just love, don't you love the trash talking that David is bringing right here? I mean, he's like, you know what? I faced the lion. I faced the bear. This Philistine is going to fall just like one of them. David approaches the battle lines and they're like, David, you're just a shepherd boy. You don't have what it takes to face this giant. What are you doing here? And David's like, look, I've learned how to manage the monotony. See, I'm a shepherd, and you may not have seen my work. You may not have heard the stories. It may not have shown up on your Instagram feed. But one day when I was out tending the sheep, a bear came along. And when that bear came along, I know it doesn't seem like all that big of a deal, but when the bear came, I kind of killed the bear. And, I don't mean to brag or anything, but, there was another time, and it wasn't the same day, but it was, kind of a different day. Nobody probably even heard about it, but there was another time when a lion came, and guess what happened? When that lion came, I killed that lion. So, I may not have ever suited up for battle. I may not have ever faced a 10-foot giant, but here's the thing. I killed a lion and I killed a bear. And so I'm pretty sure if the Lord was with me then, He'll be with me now. And so I think that this giant is probably going to fall just like the lion and the bear. Now, one thing you may not know about shepherding during these times was shepherding was not one of the highest callings. You know what I mean? It was basically anybody could be a shepherd. Being a shepherd was really, really simple. Basically all you had to do, you had to show up. You had to sometimes find the sheep. Other times you had to feed the sheep. You had to protect the sheep. But for the most part, it was a pretty simple job, a pretty mundane job. But see, David, in the process of shepherding these sheep, he was practicing his passion. He was slaying the lion. He was slaying the bear. And what he didn't know was that those smaller battles were actually preparing him for the ultimate battle. You see, he trusted God during the mundane season. And when it was his time to step to the battle line, he was prepared. God had prepared him for that moment so he could defeat the giant Goliath. David approached the battle line and he says, you know what? This ain't new to me. This ain't my first rodeo. This is not new. I know what I'm doing. I have been practicing. I've been managing the monotony. See, David understood that in order to win in public, you got to first win in private. You got to manage the monotony. In order to trust the process, I believe we've got to learn to manage the monotony. But this managing the monotony thing, it's not easy. We live in a world where we are addicted to new things, right? We constantly want new stuff. We want to upgrade. We want new stuff. Nobody ever comes to church and say, hey man, check out my shoes. Well, aren't those the same shoes you've had the last 2 years? Yeah, but check them out. I've had them for 2 years. Isn't that awesome? No. It's always check out my new shoes, right? Or nobody says, hey, I want you to come check out my car out in the parking lot. Isn't that the same car you've been driving for 5 years? Yeah, but I still want you to come check it out, because it's awesome. No. We like to celebrate new things, right? New stuff. We are addicted to new. And here's the deal. I'm not opposed to new stuff, but what I get concerned about is when people don't keep commitments. You see, here's the thing. Without commitments, there's no depth in our lives. If you want to have depth in your relationships, if you want to have depth, you've got to keep commitments. Commitments produce depth. For example, your relationships without commitment, they're shallow. They just are. They just are. I mean, if you're jumping from relationship to relationship, new thing to new thing, I've been around you for a couple years now and now moving on, right? It's like, it's shallow. It is shallow. Relationships without commitment are shallow. The work you do, whatever work you commit yourself to, without commitment, without overtime investment, it's shallow. No depth, no meaning, no long-term results. And I would even go so far to say, our faith without commitment is shallow. It's shallow. And I'll be the first one to stand up here and say, there are times where Jesus calls me to do things and I don't always get it right, okay? And I get up here and I share plenty of stories all the time about the times that I missed it and the times where I didn't quite get it right. But I will say that it's almost sad sometimes when I see how people, their commitment to their faith and to church and to all this stuff, it's so shallow, and they wonder why they're not growing. They wonder why they're not going any deeper. Maybe it's because you're not committed anywhere. Commitment. We need commitment. Without commitment, our lives lack depth. You see, I believe that commitment is what turns dreams into reality. Commitment is what turns dreams into reality. You see, David was committed. He was committed to protecting those sheep, even though it seemed mundane. I mean, David had a calling on his life, y'all. I mean, he was called to be king. And there he was shepherding goats and sheep. I mean, imagine that. Imagine how much he must have been tempted to move on, to try to force the hand of God, right? To try to make things happen. But David trusted God. He kept his commitment. He spent years protecting those sheep, managing the monotony, so when it was time to risk his life to face the giant, he was ready because he spent his entire life protecting his dad's sheep. How you manage the monotony in your life will determine your commitment to the process of God working out in your life. The second